Free gas was never the real demand. Control was when Vivian Cross rolled into my station with a deputy behind her. She thought I'd fold, hand over free fuel, and let her HOA run my business from behind a lakefront gate. But the moment I asked that officer to confirm my name, the whole morning changed. If you believe quiet men with clean records can still stand their ground, stay with me and subscribe for more stories where the truth does the talking. The brand new County Patrol SUV rolled into Mercer Fuel and Feed at 7:18 on a Tuesday morning. Tires crunching over frozen gravel, blue light bar dark, fresh snow packed along the bumper. I was standing beside Pump 3 with a brass nozzle in my hand, checking the emergency shutoff after a night of hard wind off Silver Pine Lake. I knew the vehicle. I knew the department. What I did not know was why Deputy Mason Reed had Vivian Cross sitting in the passenger seat like she had just been escorted to court. Vivian stepped out first, wrapped in a white parka too clean for Montana winter, pearl earrings flashing under the gas station canopy lights. She carried a blue folder against her chest and looked at me the way people look at a locked gate they believe should open because they paid dues somewhere nearby. Deputy Reed got out slower. He was 27, new to solo patrol, polite enough to still say sir before he understood the room. His hand rested near his notepad, not his weapon. That told me Vivian had made a complaint, not a threat call. "Mr. Mercer?" he asked. "That's me. Mrs. Cross here says you refused service, threatened her, and discriminated against members of Silver Pine Shores HOA." Vivian lifted her chin. "He denied a lawful customer fuel because I represent the association." I looked past her to Pump 2, where the price board was still glowing in the pale morning. Regular, diesel, propane refill. Same price for ranchers, tourists, loggers, and million-dollar lake houses. "I denied a discount," I said. "Not service." Vivian turned toward the deputy like she had been waiting for that line. "He admits it." "No," I said. "I said I wouldn't give your HOA free fuel." The station went quiet behind the glass. Hank Porter stood by the coffee counter with his paper cup halfway to his mouth. Maria, my morning cashier, stopped stacking receipt rolls. Two snowplow drivers by the warmer turned just enough to listen without making it obvious. Deputy Reed opened his notebook. "Mrs. Cross says you became aggressive." Vivian exhaled sharply. He raised his voice. "He told me to leave." I felt unsafe. I looked at the cameras above the canopy, then at the recorder box mounted inside the office window. Every pump, every counter angle, every voice near the door was saved to 2 drives, because fuel stations attract lies the way grain attracts mice. "Deputy," I said, "before we start writing fiction into an official report, would you do me one favor?" His eyes narrowed, not hostile, just cautious. "What favor?" "Key your shoulder radio and ask dispatch to confirm my name." Vivian gave a small laugh. "This is exactly the intimidation I was talking about." I did not answer her. I kept my eyes on Reed. He hesitated, then lifted the mic clipped to his coat. "Dispatch, Unit 7. Can you confirm a Caleb Mercer at Mercer Fuel and Feed?" The radio crackled once. Then Patty Dugan's voice came through clear as church bells on a cold road. "Unit 7, confirm Caleb Mercer, former County Emergency Fuel Coordinator, primary contact for storm response fuel storage, Sheriff Aldridge's standing emergency liaison for the North Lake route." Deputy Reed blinked. Vivian's face changed by inches. Not fear, not yet. Just the first small crack in certainty. Patty came back on the radio. "Mason, is Caleb requesting Sheriff Aldridge?" I shook my head once. Reed saw it. "Negative, dispatch. Just confirming." "Copy." "And Mason?" "Yes?" "His station cameras work. Ask before you assume." The radio clicked dead. Vivian stared at the black mic like it had betrayed her personally. Deputy Reed closed his notebook halfway. Mr. Mercer, can you explain what happened this morning? She came in wanting diesel, propane pricing, and access to my bulk winter reserve under an HOA partnership rate. I told her the pump price was the pump price and the emergency reserve was not for private resort use. She said Silver Pine Shores deserved priority because her residents pay premium property values. I told her snowplow drivers and elderly ranch families get the same line as everybody else. Vivian snapped. That is not what I said. It is on camera, I said. Her mouth closed. The wind pushed loose snow across the lot in thin white ribbons. Across the highway, the old fence line of my father's pasture cut toward the lake, half buried and stubborn as bone. Deputy Reed looked at Vivian. Ma'am, did he refuse to sell you fuel at the listed price? She tightened her grip on the folder. He refused to cooperate with a community safety arrangement. That is not what I asked. Her cheeks colored. He was hostile. Reed wrote something down. Did he refuse sale at posted price? Vivian looked toward the pump, then the store window, then the cameras. For the first time since she stepped out of the SUV, she seemed to understand she had not walked into a room she controlled. He refused the arrangement, she said. That is different, Reed replied. I said nothing. I had learned a long time ago that silence can be a clean fence if you let the other person run into it. Vivian turned on me. You think being friendly with the sheriff gives you the right to mistreat an entire community? No, I said. I think owning my fuel gives me the right not to give it away. That landed harder than I expected. Her eyes sharpened, but underneath the anger was something else. Pressure. Urgency. Like she had not come for a discount at all, but for access she badly needed before someone noticed why. Deputy Reed asked her to step back toward the SUV so he could take her statement separately. She walked off stiffly, boots biting into the packed snow, still holding that blue folder like a shield. Hank Porter came out of the store after she moved away. He kept his voice low. Caleb, he said, that woman ain't mad about 10 cents off a gallon. I know. He looked toward the north road, where the pines hid the private turnoff to Silver Pine Shores. Then you better ask yourself why an HOA president calls a deputy over free gas before breakfast. I watched Vivian talking fast beside the patrol SUV, her hands moving, her smile back in place for the young officer. That was the question that stayed with me. Why did Vivian Cross think calling the police on a gas station owner would make me hand over free fuel? And why did she need it badly enough to put her name on a false report? That question had been waiting 2 years for an answer. The first time Vivian Cross walked into Mercer Fuel and Feed, she did not look at the pumps. She looked at the property, the old propane cage, the diesel tanks behind the feed shed, the locked steel cabinet where I kept emergency keys for county storm equipment. Her eyes moved like a buyer measuring a house she had already decided should belong to her. It was early spring then, mud season in Montana, when the snow melts just enough to turn every gravel road into a bad decision. I was behind the counter sorting invoices when she came in wearing a cream jacket, clean boots, and a smile that did not reach her eyes. Mr. Mercer, she said, I'm Vivian Cross, president of Silver Pine Shores HOA. I'd like to discuss a community fuel partnership. I had heard that phrase before from developers and lake people who discovered winter after buying summer homes. What kind of partnership? A preferred rate for our members. Gas, diesel, propane. 10% would be reasonable, considering the volume we bring to this area. I looked through the front window at her black SUV parked across 2 spaces. Our fuel margin isn't built for charity to million-dollar lake homes. Her smile tightened. We are not asking for charity. We are asking for cooperation. Silver Pine Shores represents property value, tourism, and growth. Ranchers represent breakfast, I said. Snowplow drivers represent open roads. Elderly folks on fixed income represent heat. They all pay the same pump price. That was the first time I saw the real Vivian. Not angry, not loud, just offended that the room did not rearrange itself around her. She slid a folder across the counter. Inside was a printed proposal with the Silver Pine Shores crest at the top, and my station name typed into a signature line I had never agreed to. "Your emergency diesel tank would also be useful to us," she said. "Our HOA road is private, and during storms we need guaranteed access. That tank is for county emergency equipment, volunteer fire response, and contracted plow trucks. Our residents pay significant taxes. So does every widow heating a ranch house off a dirt road." Cora, my sister, was at the register that morning, pretending to count change. She gave me one look that said, "Keep talking. I want to see how far she takes this." Vivian took it farther. Our board would be willing to recognize Mercer Fuel and Feed as an official community amenity partner. I almost laughed. "Mrs. Cross, I don't need your HOA to recognize my station. It was here before Silver Pine Shores had a gate." Her fingers pressed flat on the folder. "You may regret making enemies of people who can influence county planning." There it was. The first threat, wrapped in perfume and printer ink. I pushed the folder back. "The price on the sign is the price. Pump what you need or don't. But my bulk fuel stays locked." She left without buying a gallon. After that, stories started drifting in like smoke. Hank Porter told me Vivian had gone to the diner and demanded Saturday breakfast discounts for HOA members because Lake residents elevated local dining culture. The diner owner told her eggs cost the same no matter how expensive the driveway was. She went to the feed store asking for a community rate on firewood delivery. She went to the mechanic asking for priority winter service. She even asked the bait shop for free minnows for an HOA youth fishing event on a lake her residents barely knew how to respect. Everybody said no. Nobody wanted war. That was how Vivian worked. She did not kick down doors. She tested hinges. A discount here, a favor there, a special exception. If someone gave her an inch, she wrote it into a policy and came back asking for the mile in a blue folder. Then Silver Pine Shores changed. Their clubhouse got new lights. Their private road got a gatehouse. A small metal shed appeared near the lake trail, close to the drainage ditch that ran under the old county culvert and into Silver Pine Lake. Vivian called it amenity storage in the HOA newsletter. Hank showed me one morning over coffee. The photo bothered me, not because of the shed, because of the vent pipe behind it. Fuel tanks need vents. Storage sheds do not. I folded the newsletter and handed it back to Hank. "You ever seen HOA trucks filling up out there?" He looked around the station before answering. "Only on weekends," he said. "And Caleb, they ain't filling lawnmowers." I said nothing then. I had no proof. Just a bad feeling, an old folder, and a woman who had tried too hard to get access to my bulk fuel. 2 years later, she came back with Deputy Mason Reed and a false police report. That told me the discount had never been about gas. It was about supply. And if Vivian Cross needed my supply badly enough to gamble with the deputy's notebook, then whatever she had hidden out by Silver Pine Lake was already running out of road. Silver Pine Shores sat 3 miles north of my station, behind an iron gate painted black and a stone sign big enough to make you forget the land had been cow pasture 20 years earlier. The road curved along the east bank of Silver Pine Lake, past lodge-style homes with glass walls, heated driveways, and fire pits nobody used unless someone was filming it for a real estate page. They called it a mountain paradise. The rest of us called it the old Barlow Ranch. My father had run cattle along that fence line before the developers cut it into lots. The lake itself did not belong to the HOA. The water was public under state access rules, But the banks were chopped up between private parcels, easements, and old ranch boundaries that only surveyors and tired lawyers cared to read. Vivian cared about none of that. To her, anything pretty became an amenity if she said the word with enough confidence. She started with signs. Silver Pine Shores, private resort community. Members only lake access. HOA managed shoreline. The last one made Hank Porter laugh so hard he nearly spilled coffee down his coat. Managed shoreline, he said one morning at my counter. Caleb, that shoreline's been managed by wind, beaver, and bad winters since before her daddy was born. Hank was 71, a retired rancher with one good knee and a memory sharp enough to cut wire. He came into Mercer Fuel and Feed every morning at 6:40, bought black coffee, and told me which people were lying before I had finished opening the register. That week, he was not laughing. She went after Betty's diner, he said. For what? HOA breakfast rate. Said her members would bring visibility. Betty tell her eggs don't need visibility? Close enough. The next day, Vivian sent letters to 6 local businesses. The feed store, the mechanic, the snowplow contractor, the bait shop, the hardware counter. Mine came too, printed on thick paper with Silver Pine Shores stamped in blue at the top. It called for regional vendor alignment. That meant discounts. It called for priority winter partnership. That meant free emergency access. It called for harmonized pricing to support lakefront community stability. That meant Vivian Cross wanted rural people to subsidize wealthy weekenders and clap while doing it. I put the letter in a file marked Cross, Vivian, do not discard. By winter, her pressure got sharper. She complained to the county that my plow trucks left mud near the lake road. She complained my diesel deliveries created commercial odor drift. She complained that my old cattle fence, which sat on my side of the boundary, damaged the visual standard of Silver Pine Shores. Rachel Monroe, my property attorney, read that one and laughed once. Visual standard does not cross a deed line, she said over the phone. Tell her to buy curtains. I did not tell Vivian anything. I just kept the letters. That was how my father taught me to handle people who confuse noise with power. Don't argue with every bark. Save the paper. Date the paper. Let the pattern draw itself. Then the pattern moved from paper to equipment. A gatehouse went up near the HOA clubhouse. Then a metal shed appeared behind it. Then a narrow gravel apron got poured beside the shed, just wide enough for a truck to back in. Vivian told her members it was for maintenance supplies, but maintenance supplies do not need a vent pipe. I drove past it once on the county road after delivering propane to an old cabin north of the lake. From the hill, I could see the shed roof, the pump island, and a short silver pipe sticking up behind the fence like a straw in frozen ground. I slowed down. Not enough to trespass. Not enough to make a scene. Just enough to remember. 2 days later, Hank came in before sunrise, quieter than usual. He set his coffee down and leaned against the counter. You know Nolan Briggs? Retired maintenance man from Silver Pine. Retired ain't the word. Pushed out. What happened? Hank glanced toward the window even though Vivian was nowhere near the station. He told the board that shed near the clubhouse needed permits. Vivian told him he was confused. Week later, his hours disappeared. That shifted something in me. Did Nolan say what was in it? Hank took a long breath. He said he saw fuel hoses. Said he saw members filling trucks on Saturdays. Said Vivian kept a separate clipboard, not the HOA log. The station seemed to get smaller around that sentence. A separate clipboard meant separate money. Separate money meant motive. And motive was the difference between a rude HOA president and a woman willing to call the police over a discount she had no right to demand. Where's Nolan now? I asked. Lives out by Cottonwood Draw, keeps to himself. Would he talk? Hank's eyes stayed on mine. He might. But Caleb, if that tank is what he thinks it is, this ain't just HOA nonsense. Outside, the first snowplow of the morning pulled up to pump 5. Diesel fumes drifted under the canopy. Beyond the highway, the north road disappeared into pines toward Silver Pine Lake and Vivian's private little kingdom. I looked at the folder on my shelf. Cross, Vivian. Do not discard. For 2 years, I thought she wanted respect she had not earned. Now I understood she wanted fuel she could not legally get. And somewhere behind that iron gate, beside a lake she did not own, there was a pump nobody wanted the county to see. But understanding motive and proving it are two different things. Vivian had made the first mistake that morning by bringing Deputy Mason Reed to my pumps. Now I needed to make sure her mistake became a record. Deputy Reed stood near the patrol SUV with his notebook open, writing down Vivian's statement. She had shifted from outrage to injury, one hand pressed against her chest, her voice softer now that dispatch had said my name. She was good at that. People like Vivian know when to swing a hammer and when to hold a tissue. I felt cornered, she told him. Mr. Mercer used his position in this town to intimidate me. I was 30 feet away, close enough to hear, far enough not to interrupt. My canopy cameras caught all of it. Deputy Reed looked up. Did he threaten you physically? Vivian glanced at the cameras again. Not physically, but threatening behavior can be verbal. What words did he use? She paused too long. The snowplow driver at Pump 5 coughed once and turned his face away. Hank Porter stood inside the front window, watching like a man at an auction waiting for the bad bid. Vivian recovered. He told me to leave. After you requested a discount? After I requested a community safety arrangement. Deputy Reed wrote the phrase down. Community safety arrangement. I saw his pen slow on the word safety. That word had become the favorite crowbar of people who wanted something they did not own. Road access, gate keys, lake rights, fuel reserves. Call it safety, and suddenly theft wore a clean shirt. Reed walked back toward me. Mr. Mercer, I need your side for the report. You can have it, I said, and you can have the video. Maria came out with a thumb drive already in her hand. She had been with me 6 years and knew the routine. Every serious dispute got clipped, labeled, copied, and stored before lunch. Pump 3 audio and front counter, she said. From 7:04 to now. Reed took it carefully. Thank you, ma'am. Vivian's head snapped around. You recorded me without consent? This is a fuel station, I said. There are signs on both doors and every pump. She looked at the small black decals as if they had appeared there to spite her. Reed asked, Mrs. Cross, did you see the posted recording notices? She did not answer. He wrote that down too. That was the moment the power shifted. Not all the way. Just enough. Vivian stepped forward. Deputy, I expect this complaint to be handled seriously. Silver Pine Shores has legal counsel, and we will not tolerate discrimination against our members. I looked at Reed. Deputy, ask her one more thing for your report. Vivian's mouth tightened. He does not get to direct this investigation. Reed ignored the performance. What question? Ask whether she attempted to purchase fuel at the posted price. He turned to Vivian. Ma'am? She breathed through her nose. I came to discuss an authorized HOA arrangement. That is not a purchase at posted price. I am not required to accept unfair pricing. Everyone here pays the same price, Reed said. Vivian went still. It was not anger this time. It was calculation. She had entered the morning thinking she could make a young deputy pressure me. Instead, his report was becoming a list of things she had not meant to admit. No refused service, no physical threat, No different price. Recorded notice posted. Her own phrase. Community safety arrangement. Reed closed the notebook. I'll file the report. If there's evidence of a criminal violation, the sheriff's office will review it. If not, this remains documented as a civil customer dispute. Vivian's face went red. Civil? I called because I was unsafe. Then the video will show that, Reed said. He said it clean. No insult, no challenge, just procedure. That made it worse for her. She turned toward me, and for the first time that morning, her smile disappeared completely. You think cameras make you untouchable? No, I said. I think they make people careful. She leaned closer, voice low enough that Reed might miss it, but the pump mic would not. You have no idea what you are interfering with. I held her eyes. Then I guess you should have explained it before calling the police. Her jaw shifted. She walked back to the SUV without another word. Reed stayed behind a moment. Mr. Mercer, I apologize for the confusion. Don't apologize for doing your job. He looked toward the North Road. Sheriff Aldridge is going to want to see this. He already knows part of it. Reed frowned. Part of what? Before I could answer, the phone inside the station rang. Maria opened the door and called out, Caleb, Sheriff Aldridge on line 1. I walked inside, picked up the receiver behind the counter, and watched Vivian's SUV pull away through the glass. Sheriff Tom Aldridge did not waste words. Caleb, he said, tell me Vivian Cross was just standing at your station trying to turn a discount argument into a police report. She was. He exhaled. Good. That gives us a clean starting point. For what? There was a pause. Paper moved on his end of the line. We've got 3 complaints tied to Silver Pine Shores. 2 from vendors, 1 from a former maintenance worker. The last one mentions fuel storage near the lake. I looked at the blue folder Vivian had left on the counter by mistake. Silver Pine Shores, HOA Fuel Partnership Proposal. Her signature was on the last page. A false complaint was bad. A signed demand for access to my fuel, tied to an unregistered pump by Protected Water, was something else entirely. Sheriff Aldridge lowered his voice. Caleb, don't confront her again. Preserve every record you have. If she's doing what I think she's doing, she just put herself in the first paragraph of the case. I stared out at the road, where Vivian had disappeared. The morning had started with her accusing me. By noon, her accusation had become evidence. I locked Vivian's blue folder in the safe behind the counter and wrote the time on a yellow sticky note. 12:03 p.m. I did not touch the original again. I copied it, scanned it, and put the scan in the same digital folder as the pump footage, Deputy Reed's report number, and the audio from Vivian saying I had no idea what I was interfering with. That sentence mattered. People say more than they mean when they think they are still winning. At 1:15, I called Rachel Monroe. She had handled my father's estate, 2 boundary disputes, and 1 ugly easement fight with a timber company that thought my South Pasture Road belonged to them because their trucks had used it twice in 1987. Rachel listened without interrupting. Then she said, Do not accuse Vivian of anything. Do not call the HOA. Do not drive onto their property. We build from public records first. That's what I planned. I know. I'm saying it out loud so neither one of us gets tempted. By 2 o'clock, I was in the county records office with my coat still smelling faintly of diesel. The clerk, Donna May, pulled every permit tied to Silver Pine Shores for the last 5 years. Clubhouse remodel, gatehouse roof, dock repair, irrigation line, landscaping wall, 1 storage shed. No fuel tank, no fuel dispenser, no hazardous material filing, no environmental setback approval near the lake drainage zone. Donna turned the monitor slightly so I could read the parcel map. The shed sat on Lot C-17, marked as HOA Common Area. Behind it, a narrow blue line curved toward Silver Pine Lake. "That's the drainage ditch," Donna said. "Seasonal runoff. Feeds the lake after thaw." My stomach tightened. Fuel near water changes everything. A bad HOA fine can cost you money. A leaking tank can poison a lake for a generation. I asked Donna for certified copies of every permit she had. She looked over her glasses. "You expecting trouble?" "Trouble came to my pumps this morning." She printed the documents without another question. Back at the station, I spread the permits across my office desk. The storage shed application was thin. Too thin. One page. Vague description. No utility plan. No tank drawing. No fire review. Vivian's signature sat at the bottom in blue ink, neat and proud. Purpose of structure. Maintenance storage. I put a red circle around those two words. Then I opened my own delivery logs. Mercer Fuel and Feed does not sell wholesale to unlicensed buyers, but we track every unusual small volume purchase. After a theft attempt years back, I made Maria log repeated drum fills, portable tank fills, and cash diesel buys over 20 gallons. The pattern showed up fast. Every other Saturday, sometimes Sunday morning. Silver Pine Shores members buying diesel in 50-gallon portable drums. Different names. Same HOA address. Same timing. Spring through fall, then heavier during winter holidays. One name appeared 12 times. Grant Wilkes, Vivian's board treasurer. Another appeared 9 times. Martin Cross, Vivian's husband. I printed the log and laid it beside the permit. Storage shed. Repeated drum fills. No registered tank. Drainage ditch. Lake water. The pieces did not prove the whole machine, but they showed its shape. At 4:30, Hank Porter came in for his second coffee. He saw my office light on and tapped the glass with one knuckle. "You found something," he said. "Maybe." He stepped inside and shut the door. "Caleb, I should have told you sooner." I looked up. He took off his cap and held it in both hands. That worried me more than his words. "My niece cleaned houses up there last summer. Said Silver Pine folks had fuel cards, not credit cards. HOA cards. They'd swipe them at that pump by the clubhouse and Vivian's office billed them monthly." "You sure?" She saw the ledger once. Vivian yelled at her for standing too close to the desk. A private pump. HOA fuel cards. Monthly billing. That was not emergency storage. That was retail resale wearing a clubhouse jacket. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the wall where my father's old station license hung in a cracked frame. He had renewed that license every year for 34 years, paid every fee, passed every inspection, replaced every line the state told him to replace, even when it hurt. Vivian had built her own pump by a lake and called it an amenity. Hank lowered his voice. "What happens if that tank leaks?" I looked down at the drainage map. Then everybody downstream pays for it. That was the first time anger really hit me. Not loud, not hot, just a hard pressure under the ribs. Vivian had tried to turn my legal station into the villain because she needed to protect an illegal one. At 5:12, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. A man's voice said, "Mr. Mercer, my name is Nolan Briggs. Hank said you might be asking about that shed at Silver Pine." I closed my office door. "I am." Nolan breathed like a man deciding whether the truth was worth the trouble. "It ain't a shed," he said, "and I've got pictures." I told him to meet me anywhere he felt safe. He picked my house, not the station. That told me enough before he ever arrived. An hour later, headlights rolled up my ranch drive, slow and careful. Nolan Briggs stepped out of an old brown pickup with rust around the wheel wells and a manila folder tucked inside his coat. He looked older than 63 under the porch light. The kind of tired that comes from carrying something too long. You alone? He asked. Yes. No Vivian? No board people? Nolan, this is my land. Nobody gets up this drive without me knowing. He nodded, but he still checked over his shoulder before stepping inside. I put coffee on the table. He did not touch it. He laid the folder between us like it might go off if handled wrong. I worked maintenance at Silver Pine Shores from the first winter they opened, he said. Road sanding, dock repair, clubhouse heat, whatever Vivian didn't want to pay a licensed contractor for. When did the shed go in? 2 summers ago, she called it a storage upgrade, said the board approved it. Did they? Not the way she said. He opened the folder. The first photo showed a shallow excavation behind the HOA gatehouse. Fresh dirt, yellow caution tape, a concrete form half built into the ground. The second showed a cylindrical tank suspended from a small rented crane. The third showed the tank lowered into the hole beside a black pipe running toward the pump island. I did not speak. I slid the photos into a row on the table. Nolan tapped the fourth picture. That's the vent. I told her it needed to be marked and registered. She told me I was maintenance, not management. The fifth photo showed water pooled along one side of the pad. In the background, bare cottonwoods followed the drainage ditch down toward Silver Pine Lake. How close is this to the ditch? I asked. 30 feet. Maybe less after spring runoff cuts the bank. My hands went still. 30 feet from a drainage path to the lake. Fuel underground. No permit. No inspection. Nolan kept going. She had us pour the pad on a Sunday. Said inspectors were backed up and paperwork was pending. Then she brought in a contractor from out of county. Cash job. No company decal on the truck. Who paid? He slid another photo across. It was a close-up of a work order taped to the gatehouse wall. The top line read, Silver Pine Shores Amenity Storage Improvements. The bottom had a company name I had not seen before. Cross Hospitality Services. Vivian's name was printed under Authorized Representative. That's not the HOA, I said. No, Nolan said. But she made the HOA reimburse it. He pulled out a folded sheet of notebook paper. Handwritten dates, gallons, member names, cash payments, fuel card numbers. I copied what I could before she locked me out of the office. That pump wasn't for mowers. Residents used it. Contractors used it. Vivian's husband filled his truck there every week. She charged them through monthly HOA statements, then ran part of the money through that hospitality company. Why come now? His jaw tightened. Because last March, after the thaw, I saw rainbow sheen in the ditch. Not much. Enough. I told Vivian the tank might be leaking or the lines weren't sealed. She told me if I repeated that, she'd sue me for defaming the association. 2 weeks later, my job was gone. The room went quiet except for the old refrigerator humming in the corner. I looked at the photos again. Not rumors anymore. Not coffee counter talk. A tank. A pump. A ditch. A private company. A man fired after raising safety concerns. This was evidence. But evidence had to be handled right, or it turned into gossip with better paper. I called Rachel Monroe. She answered on the third ring. Tell me you did not trespass. I'm in my kitchen. Good. What happened? Nolan Briggs is here with photographs. What kind? The kind that make Vivian Cross wish she had never called the police. Rachel was silent for half a second. Put him on speaker. Do not mark the originals. Do not scan them on a public machine. We need chain of custody. Nolan looked at me when I set the phone down. Fear moved across his face, fast and honest. Rachel's voice softened. Mr. Briggs, I'm Rachel Monroe. I represent Caleb. I need to ask you one thing first. Did you take these photos while lawfully working on the property? Yes, ma'am. I was maintenance supervisor then. Did you alter them? No. Do you still have the device or original files? He swallowed. Old phones in my truck. Do not delete anything. Do not send them to anyone. Tomorrow morning, bring the phone and the folder to my office. We'll make certified copies and prepare a witness statement. Nolan stared at the pictures. Can she come after me? She can try, Rachel said. But retaliation gets expensive when the other side keeps records. That was the first time Nolan touched the coffee. Before he left, he paused at my door and looked toward the dark ridge where Silver Pine Shores sat hidden behind pines and money. I should have said something sooner. You're saying it now. He shook his head. Caleb, there's more. Vivian didn't just hide the tank. I waited. She kept 2 sets of books, one for the board, one for herself. And if you want the second one, you need Evelyn Hart. HOA secretary? He nodded. She's got copies. She's scared, but she's got them. Nolan drove off with his old phone wrapped in a towel on the passenger seat and the manila folder locked in my safe. For the first time all day, the case had a witness, and somewhere inside Silver Pine Shores, another one was waiting with the books Vivian never thought anyone would read. Evelyn Hart called me the next morning at 6:12, before the station opened. Her voice was low, clipped, and shaking just enough to tell me she had spent the night deciding whether fear was heavier than guilt. Mr. Mercer, Nolan said you're asking about the fuel account. I'm asking about records. There are 2 kinds. That sentence made me sit up straighter. HOA records and Vivian records, she said. The first set is clean. The second set explains why she needed you. We met at Rachel Monroe's office at 9. Not my station. Not Evelyn's house. Rachel wanted a neutral room, cameras outside, receptionist as witness, and a copy machine that logged every scan. That was Rachel. She did not just build cases. She built them so the other side could not pry out the nails. Evelyn arrived in a gray coat, carrying a banker's box with both hands. She looked like a woman walking into confession with evidence instead of prayers. Rachel opened the conference room door. Before we begin, Mrs. Hart, are these records yours to access as HOA secretary? Yes. Board minutes, invoices, payment ledgers, bank statements, member billing summaries. I copied them from association files. Did you steal anything? No, I made copies. The originals are still there. Rachel nodded. Good. Sit down. Evelyn placed the box on the table and lifted the lid. The first folder was labeled Board-Approved Improvements. Inside were minutes showing the HOA voted on a lake amenity storage shed for maintenance supplies. Cost, $18,400. The second folder was labeled Actual Project Costs. That number was $73,910. I looked at Rachel. Rachel did not react. She picked up a pen. Evelyn pulled out invoices from Cross Hospitality Services, the same company Nolan's photo had shown on the work order. Fuel system consultation, private member access hardware, underground utility support, monthly reconciliation. Vivian told the board. This company handled guest services, Evelyn said. She said it made Silver Pine feel more professional. Who owns Cross Hospitality Services? Rachel asked. Vivian's husband filed it. Vivian controls the account. I felt the anger come back, colder this time. Evelyn slid over a stack of member billing statements. Fuel access fee, lake convenience surcharge, winter mobility support. Different names for the same thing. Residents were paying to use the private pump, and the HOA was paying Vivian's company to manage it. Rachel circled 3 entries. These payments came from reserve funds. Yes. Reserve funds meant for road repair and lake maintenance? Yes. And they were routed through a private company connected to the HOA president? Evelyn nodded. That's why I started copying. I looked at her hands. They were clenched around a paperclip. What made you stop being quiet? I asked. Her eyes lifted. Spring thaw. The room went still. My husband fishes silver pine at dawn. Last April, he came home and said the South Cove smelled wrong, like gas on wet rocks. I brought it up at the board meeting. Vivian removed it from the minutes. Rachel's pen stopped. She removed environmental concerns from official minutes. Evelyn opened another folder and pulled out 2 versions of the same meeting record. Draft minutes with her note. Odor reported near South Cove. Final minutes with that line gone. Rachel looked at me. That is consciousness of risk. Then Evelyn pulled the last folder from the box. Blue tab. Thick. This is the fuel partnership file. My name was on the first page. Mercer Fuel and Feed Strategic Supply Proposal. Vivian had been building pressure against me for months. Letters to the county. Draft complaints. Notes accusing my station of price discrimination, unsafe practices, and anti-community conduct. There was even a prepared request to suspend my commercial license if I refused reasonable cooperation. Rachel read it once, then pushed her chair back. She wasn't reacting to your refusal yesterday, Rachel said. She planned the false complaint as leverage. Evelyn's voice dropped. There's a county meeting next month. Vivian got herself on the agenda. She wants the board to review your license. I stared at the paper. The station my father built. The pumps I maintained legally. The emergency reserve that kept ranch roads open in blizzards. Vivian planned to drag all of it into a public hearing so she could force me to feed her illegal pump. Rachel closed the folder. Then we let her. Evelyn looked scared. Let her? Yes, Rachel said. We do not warn her. We do not confront her. We notify Sheriff Aldridge. We notify environmental enforcement. We preserve these copies. And when Vivian stands in public accusing Caleb of unsafe fuel practices, we answer with the tank, the ledgers, the missing permit, and the edited minutes. I looked down at Vivian's signature, printed neat and confident, beneath a demand she thought would break me. For the first time since the patrol SUV pulled into my lot, I smiled. Not because I wanted revenge, because the truth finally had a place to stand. By noon, Rachel had certified copies, Evelyn had signed a witness statement, and Sheriff Aldridge had the first clean summary of the evidence. By evening, Vivian Cross filed her county request to revoke my business license. She thought she had moved first. She had actually stepped onto the record. Vivian's county request landed on a Friday afternoon, stamped, filed, and copied to Mercer Fuel and Feed like a formal shot across the fence. The subject line read, Review of Commercial Fuel License and Community Safety Concerns. Her complaint claimed my station used unfair pricing, denied HOA members lawful access, and operated in a manner hostile to the stability of Silver Pine shores. She did not mention her own pump. She did not mention the tank. She did not mention Nolan Briggs, Evelyn Hart, or the edited meeting minutes where Lake Odor disappeared from the record like a body under snow. Rachel read the complaint at my kitchen table and slid it back to me. She overplayed it. She's asking them to suspend my license. She's asking them to put you under oath, Rachel said. That's different. The hearing was set for the second Tuesday in April at the county annex, a low brick building between the courthouse and the sheriff's office. For 3 weeks, Vivian filled the space around it with noise. She sent emails to homeowners calling me a dangerous fuel operator. She told county staff my station threatened lake families. She posted a statement on the Silver Pine Shores message board saying the HOA had a duty to protect members from rural commercial abuse. That phrase made Hank Porter laugh once, then go quiet. Rural commercial abuse, he said at the station counter. Woman buys a house on old pasture and acts surprised there's pasture people nearby. But the pressure worked on some folks. 2 customers asked if I was in trouble. One plow contractor wanted to know if my diesel license was safe through next winter. Maria found an anonymous note taped to the station door. Stop poisoning the lake. That one stayed with me. Not because it was true, because Vivian had turned the accusation around before the public knew there was a real threat. Rachel told me not to answer. Sheriff Aldridge told me not to answer. So I did what my father would have done. I kept the pumps clean, the ledgers straight, and the folder locked. The morning of the hearing, the room filled fast. Ranchers in work coats, HOA residents in clean boots, county officials, small business owners Vivian had leaned on. Deputy Mason Reed stood near the back wall in uniform. Nolan Briggs sat 2 rows from the door, hands clasped tight. Evelyn Hart kept her eyes down, a sealed folder in her lap. Vivian arrived last. Pearls, navy coat, blue folder. She walked in with 3 HOA board members behind her and a look on her face that said she had mistaken attendance for support. At 7 o'clock sharp, County Chair Daniel Voss called the meeting to order. Routine items went first. Road gravel, culvert repair, a grazing permit dispute near Cottonwood Draw. Vivian waded through all of it with her folder closed and one polished finger resting on the tab marked Mercer. At 7:42, the chair said, Item 6, complaint filed by Silver Pine Shores Homeowners Association regarding Mercer Fuel and Feed. Vivian stood before that he finished the sentence. She walked to the podium and adjusted the microphone like she owned the room. My name is Vivian Cross, president of Silver Pine Shores HOA, she began. I am here representing families who have been mistreated, overcharged, and intimidated by a commercial fuel operator who believes his local connections place him above basic accountability. She looked at me when she said local connections. I did not move. She continued for 9 minutes. She spoke of safety, fairness, lake families, emergency access, and community standards. She claimed my refusal to enter a fuel partnership endangered residents during storms. She called my station's pricing structure retaliatory. She suggested my emergency fuel reserve should be reviewed by the county because it gave me improper leverage over neighboring communities. Then she made the mistake Rachel had predicted. She demanded that my commercial license be suspended pending investigation. The room shifted. Even people who did not know fuel law knew what it meant to shut down the only station on that side of the lake before spring storms ended. The chair turned to me. Mr. Mercer, you may respond. I stood and walked to the podium with one sheet of paper. Not the photos, not the ledgers, not yet. My name is Caleb Mercer. Mercer Fuel and Feed has operated under continuous state and county fuel licensing for 41 years. Our inspection record is clean. Our pricing is posted publicly and applies equally to every customer. I refused only one thing: access to my bulk emergency reserve for a private HOA arrangement. Vivian smiled faintly, like she thought I had no bigger answer. I turned to the chair. Sir, before this board considers suspending a lawful business license, I respectfully request that you move to the emergency agenda item added this morning. Vivian's smile stopped. The chair looked down at his printed agenda. Item 7. Emergency environmental and licensing concern regarding Silver Pine Shores common area. One of Vivian's board members leaned forward. Vivian turned to him. What is that? He had no answer. The side door opened. Sheriff Aldridge entered first. Rachel Monroe followed with a file box. Behind them came a state environmental inspector in a gray jacket carrying a sealed evidence packet. The room fell into the kind of silence that does not ask for order. Vivian looked from the sheriff to Rachel, then to the inspector. For the first time since I had known her, she did not look offended. She looked unprepared. Sheriff Aldridge took a seat beside the county attorney. Rachel set the file box on the front table without opening it. The state environmental inspector, a square-shouldered woman named Denise Keller, remained standing with a sealed packet in both hands. County Chair Voss cleared his throat. Inspector Keller, this emergency item was added under County Safety Authority. You may proceed. Vivian stood halfway. Mr. Chair, I object. This is clearly an ambush arranged by Mr. Mercer to distract from the complaint against his station. Rachel did not look at her. The complaint against Mr. Mercer is why the evidence was reviewed. Mrs. Cross put fuel safety before this board. We agree it should be discussed. That shut the room down colder than any gavel could have. Inspector Keller opened the packet. On county request and based on witness statements, permit records, and photographic evidence, my office conducted a preliminary review of Silver Pine Shores Common Area Lot C-17. Vivian's board treasurer, Grant Wilkes, whispered, Vivian, what is Lot C-17? She did not answer. Keller continued. Lot C-17 contains a structure permitted as maintenance storage. No fuel storage permit exists for that parcel. No above-ground or underground tank registration exists. No retail fuel dispensing license exists. No environmental setback approval exists for fuel storage adjacent to the drainage corridor feeding Silver Pine Lake. The room changed with every missing permit. Vivian's hand tightened on her folder. That is false. The structure is for HOA maintenance. Sheriff Aldridge stood. Mrs. Cross, please sit down. I will not sit while my community is slandered. Rachel finally opened the file box. The first photograph went onto the projector screen. The tank hanging from a rented crane. The second, the excavation behind the gatehouse. The third, the pump island. The fourth, the drainage ditch shining with thaw water, running toward the lake. Nolan Briggs closed his eyes in the second row. Evelyn Hart looked down at the sealed folder in her lap. Keller said, These photographs were provided by a former employee who took them while performing authorized maintenance work. Metadata and device records have been preserved. Vivian turned toward Nolan like she wanted to burn him with her eyes. He did not look away. Then Rachel placed the invoices on the projector. Cross Hospitality Services, Fuel System Consultation, Member Access Hardware, Monthly Reconciliation, paid from Silver Pine Shores HOA Reserve Funds. Grant Wilkes stood fully now. Vivian, what is this? Her voice sharpened. Sit down, Grant. County Chair Voss said, Mrs. Cross, you are not chairing this meeting. For the first time, a few people in the back row murmured. Rachel lifted the member billing statements. HOA residents were charged fuel access fees through monthly statements. Those payments were then partially routed to a private company connected to Mrs. Cross's household. These records were copied by the HOA secretary in her official capacity and certified this morning. Evelyn's shoulders trembled, but she stood. I copied them, she said, because the board was never shown the real costs. Vivian spun. You had no right. Evelyn's voice grew steadier. I had every right. I'm the secretary. You told me to remove the lake odor complaint from the minutes. Silence. That was the sentence that broke the room. Not the tank, not the invoices, the cover-up. Inspector Keller placed one final document on the screen. Preliminary soil results from samples taken near the drainage line that afternoon. Hydrocarbon presence was detected at 2 test points, she said. The level requires full investigation and immediate shutdown of the dispensing system. As of 7:36 this evening, enforcement crews are on site at Silver Pine Shores securing the pump, tagging the tank, and preventing further use. Vivian's face went pale. At this exact moment? The chair asked. Yes, sir. Behind me, somebody whispered, while she was here accusing Caleb? Nobody answered because nobody had to. Deputy Mason Reed, standing by the back wall, looked at me once, not surprised anymore, just grim. Vivian reached for the podium. This is political retaliation. That tank is not mine. The HOA approved. Grant Wilkes cut her off. No, we didn't. Another board member stood. We approved a shed. Evelyn opened her folder, and Vivian edited the minutes. The room rose into low, angry voices. HOA residents turned on one another. Ranchers stared forward, arms crossed, watching the resort kingdom crack from the inside. Sheriff Aldridge stepped to the aisle. Quiet, he said. He did not shout. He did not need to. The room obeyed. He looked at Vivian. Mrs. Cross, this office has probable cause to believe the complaint you filed against Mr. Mercer was knowingly false and connected to an attempt to pressure a licensed fuel operator into supplying an unlicensed dispensing operation. Vivian shook her head. No. Additionally, he said, the county attorney has authorized charges related to false reporting pending further review of the environmental and financial records. Rachel closed the file box. Keller sealed her packet. Evelyn sat down like her legs had finally given out. Sheriff Aldridge stepped closer. Mrs. Cross, he said, voice flat and final. We need you to come with us. Vivian looked at the room she had expected to control. No one stood for her. Not her board. Not her residents. Not the county. Outside the annex windows, beyond the parking lot and the highway, Silver Pine Lake sat dark under the last strip of evening light. For 2 years, Vivian had called it her amenity. That night, the lake gave up her secret. Sheriff Aldridge did not put on a show. He walked Vivian to the side hall, read the warrant in a low voice, and gave her every courtesy the law required. That mattered to me. If justice needs theater to feel strong, it is usually weaker than it looks. Vivian looked back once before the door closed behind her. Not at me, at Evelyn. Evelyn held her eyes for half a second, then looked down at the folder in her lap. That was enough. The woman Vivian had treated like a clerk had become the person who opened the books. The county did not suspend my license that night. They dismissed Vivian's complaint by unanimous vote after Rachel handed over my inspection history, posted pricing records, emergency fuel agreement, and the full video from Pump 3. Deputy Mason Reed's report was entered into the file, including Vivian's own words. Community safety arrangement, perhaps overstated, and you have no idea what you are interfering with. By midnight, enforcement crews had locked the Silver Pine Shores pump, tagged the tank, and posted warning tape around the drainage ditch. By morning, the HOA residents who had believed Vivian's emails were standing outside the clubhouse reading notices from agencies she could not bully. The charges came in layers: false report, unlicensed fuel resale, misuse of HOA reserve funds, failure to register a fuel storage system, environmental violations connected to the drainage line feeding Silver Pine Lake. Vivian's attorney tried to call it misunderstanding. Rachel called it a business model. The county attorney called it probable cause. The judge called it enough. At the emergency HOA meeting a week later, Vivian was recalled before she could resign. Grant Wilkes tried to explain that the board had been misled, but the residents were done hearing explanations from people who had signed checks without reading invoices. Evelyn Hart was elected interim president because she was the only one in the room who had kept copies when keeping copies cost her sleep. Her first act was simple. She opened the records. Every homeowner saw what the tank cost, what the pump made, what cross-hospitality services had taken, what lake maintenance money had been drained into Vivian's private scheme while the South Cove carried the smell of fuel after thaw. Nolan Briggs gave a sworn statement. He was not loud. Men like Nolan rarely are. He just sat in Rachel's office, placed his old phone on the table, and told the truth in order. The cleanup cost more than the HOA wanted to admit. Soil removal, tank decommissioning, water testing, legal fees, restitution. Vivian and her husband were ordered to repay what they had routed through cross-hospitality. The HOA had to cover the environmental work first, then pursue recovery through court. Silver Pine Shores lost its resort shine fast. The Iron Gate stayed open for 3 straight weeks while contractors came and went. The black signs came down. Members-only lake access disappeared from the fence. Somebody painted over HOA-managed shoreline with flat gray primer. I saw it from the county road one morning and kept driving. People asked if I felt satisfied. I did not know how to answer that. Satisfaction is too clean a word for watching a lake almost get poisoned because one woman wanted profit wrapped in authority. I felt relief. I felt tired. I felt the old anger ease when the first clean water report came back and Rachel called to say the contamination had not reached the main basin. That was the win. Not Vivian in court. Not her name in the paper. The lake still had a chance. A month later, Evelyn came into Mercer Fuel and Feed alone. No folder, no pearls, no speech. She stood by the counter where Vivian had once demanded a partnership and asked if Silver Pine Shores could help fund a winter fuel assistance program for ranch families and elderly residents along the North Lake Road. Cora, who had said very little through the whole mess, looked at me from the register. "Caleb," she said, "don't make the woman beg to do the right thing." So we built it. Nothing fancy. Paper cards printed at the station, verified through the county assistance office. 5 cents off heating fuel through the hard months, matched by the new HOA board from money recovered out of Vivian's accounts. Ranch widows used it. Retired mill workers used it. Snowplow families used it. A few Silver Pine residents donated extra because shame, when handled right, can become usefulness. Deputy Mason Reed came by the first morning the cards went live. He was off duty, buying coffee, still young, but steadier than he had been at Pump 3. "You knew where this was going that morning?" he asked. "No," I said. "I just knew she was lying." He nodded toward the pumps. "I'll never forget that." "Good," I said. "A badge should listen before it moves." He took that the right way. That winter hit hard. 3 blizzards before New Year's. Roads closed twice. Silver Pine Lake froze clean and bright under a white sky. The drainage ditch stayed clear. The old station lights burned through every storm. One February evening, Hank Porter stood beside Pump 5 while I filled his diesel cans. He looked toward the North Road, then back at me. "Funny thing," he said. "She came for free gas." I locked the nozzle back into place. "No," I said. "She came for control." Hank grinned, but there was no humor in it. "And got paperwork." I looked at the station window, at the reflection of the pumps, the road, the dark line of pines leading toward the lake my father taught me to respect before I ever knew how to read a deed. Vivian Cross thought a blue folder, an HOA title, and a false police report could bend a town around her private scheme. She was wrong. The law did not shout. The lake did not shout. I did not shout. But the records spoke clearly. And in the end, the price of free gas was everything she tried to hide.
What I learned through all of this is simple. When something feels wrong, don't answer noise with more noise. Write it down, sell the paper, keep the food tag, ask for the permits, the deed, the invoice, the missing minutes. Vivian had title, photos, and a loud voice, but Caleb Lynn records honest witness and the patience to let the two stand on its own. That is what protected his station, the lake, and the people who depend on Paul. There is a quiet kind of strength in doing things the right way, even when somebody else tries to make you look small. Land, water, family business, old roads, and small town just are not just things on paper. They are responsibility, and sometimes standing your ground does not mean raising your voice. Sometimes it means staying steady long enough for the facts to catch up. If you have ever seen an HOA, a board member, or anyone with a little power try to push too far, type yes in the comments or tell us what state you are watching from. I read those stories and I know a lot of folks out there have lived through something close to this. And if story about land, dignity, paperwork, and quiet justice means something to you, subscribe and stay with us. There are more HOA and rent story coming, and I would be glad to have you along for the next one.